Ever been in a situation where you unintentionally hurt someone's feelings, only to realize later how much damage was done? It's a common experience, and sometimes, it feels like no matter what you say, the trust or respect is shattered. The truth is, breaking down someone's ego is often easier than we think, especially when we don't recognize the power our words or actions have. As the old saying goes, the tongue is mightier than the sword, and in relationships, it can be incredibly destructive. In today's video, we're talking about how easily a woman's ego can be destroyed and the impact it can have on your relationship. We'll reveal powerful insights on how to handle these situations with care and awareness. Stick around till the end to gain the full understanding of how to avoid this pitfall and build stronger, healthier connections. You know, one of the easiest ways to crush a woman's ego is by criticizing her appearance. Sounds harsh, doesn't it? But it's true. The sad reality is that we all care about how we look, more than we'd care to admit. It's this constant pressure to meet beauty standards, to be flawless in a world that thrives on shallow judgments. And when someone, especially someone close to us, calls out how we look, it hits a lot harder than we'd expect. I'm sure you've seen it before. A woman walks into a room, and she's dressed to the nines, full of confidence, glowing, owning her presence. But then someone throws out a comment. Maybe it's about her hair being messy or her clothes not quite fitting right. And just like that, you can see her energy deflate. It's like the room gets smaller, and the confidence she was radiating? Gone, like it was never there. I remember a time when I made a throwaway comment about a woman's appearance, just a casual remark, nothing mean-spirited, at least that's what I thought. But I'll never forget the way she looked at me. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was disappointment. A deep, silent kind of hurt that almost said, "Why did you have to go there?" That moment stayed with me. It made me realize how fragile our self-esteem can be when we're constantly battling to meet external expectations. And let's face it, we live in a world where appearance is everything, and women are held to an impossibly high standard. It's almost like they're expected to be flawless, but the moment they fall short, it's as if their entire worth is up for debate. It's a crazy thing. You could have the most amazing, sharpest mind, but if someone points out a blemish, you can feel like you're less than. There's this quote I came across by the author and speaker, Brené Brown, which really stuck with me. She said, "The thing that makes us most vulnerable is the one thing we try to hide the most. Our imperfections." And isn't that the truth? It's these imperfections, whether it's a wrinkle here or a couple of extra pounds there, that seem to define us in the eyes of others. But if you look a little deeper, isn't that exactly what makes us human? That's what's so messed up. We build up women's self-worth based on their outward appearance, when it's their inner strength, their intelligence, their kindness, and their character that should define them. When you criticize how someone looks, it's like telling them that none of that other stuff matters. It's like you're reducing them to nothing more than the sum of their body parts. You break her down piece by piece without even realizing it. But I'll tell you something else. Women are resilient. Yeah, those comments hurt. But they're stronger than we think. So when we criticize her looks, we might think we're tearing her down, but in reality, we're making her more determined to rise above it all. It's like pushing her against a wall, and she'll either let herself crumble or she'll push back with everything she's got. At the end of the day, we need to remind ourselves of something. The words we speak matter. We can either lift someone up or tear them down. Criticizing a woman's appearance might seem harmless in the moment, but the impact it has can last much longer. So, next time, before you say anything, think about how your words might affect her. Let's choose to see the beauty that goes beyond the surface. Because when we do, we just might unlock a much more powerful side of her. Dismissing a woman's feelings or opinions. Let's talk about that one for a second, because it's one of those subtle things that can really do some damage to her sense of self-worth. It's easy to brush off what someone says, especially when it's something that doesn't line up with your own perspective. But here's the thing, when you dismiss her feelings, you're not just rejecting what she's saying, you're rejecting her as a person. And that cuts deeper than any sharp words you might throw at her. I remember a conversation I had with a close friend of mine a while back. She was telling me about something that had happened at work, and as she spoke, her voice was shaky. I could tell she was struggling to hold it together, but before she could finish explaining, I quickly interrupted, not out of malice, but because I thought I had the solution. I thought, oh, I know exactly how to fix this. I started explaining what I would do, thinking I was being helpful, but she went quiet. The conversation shifted, and I could tell she felt completely unheard. In that moment, I realized how often we can fall into the trap of dismissing someone's feelings because we think we know better, or because we're uncomfortable with the rawness of their emotions. We do it in the name of problem solving, but really, we're just avoiding the discomfort of really listening and empathizing with them. What my friend needed at that time wasn't a solution, it was validation. She needed me to hear her and acknowledge how she felt. And when I didn't, I could see how that little dismissal affected her, like I had just wiped away everything she had been feeling. It was as if her thoughts didn't matter. And the thing is, that kind of dismissal doesn't just happen in the heat of a conversation. It happens all the time, often in ways we don't even notice. It's when we don't take her opinions seriously. It's when we laugh off something she's passionate about, or brush off her concerns as being overreacting or too emotional. You might think it's no big deal, but for her, it feels like you're telling her that her thoughts, her feelings, don't deserve to take up space. You're telling her that who she is, and what she believes in, isn't valid. And that's a direct hit to her sense of self. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But when someone dismisses your feelings or your opinions, it's like telling you that your truth doesn't matter, that the essence of who you are doesn't matter. That can leave scars. It doesn't matter how tough someone appears on the outside. On the inside, when their voice is silenced, it's like they're being told that their inner world is irrelevant. What's tough is that this dismissal can sometimes be so subtle that it goes unnoticed until it starts to eat away at someone's confidence. Over time, constant invalidation chips away at her belief in herself. She might begin to second-guess her thoughts, constantly wondering if she's overreacting or if she's just being too much. Imagine living in that kind of constant uncertainty. But here's the truth, we all want to be heard. We all want to feel like our experiences and emotions are acknowledged and valued. And that's not just about agreeing with her all the time, it's about listening, understanding, and creating space for her to feel what she feels, even if you don't fully understand it. As the philosopher Rainer Maria Rilke once said, "Don't take my thoughts away from me, listen to them." It's a simple but profound act, to truly listen, not just to respond, but to understand. And in that act, you show her that she's worthy of being heard, that her feelings and opinions matter. So, next time, take a pause before dismissing someone. Even if you disagree or think they're being overly sensitive, remember that their feelings are valid, and that small act of validation can go a long way. It's not about winning a conversation or proving a point, it's about respecting her humanity, her experiences, and her right to be heard. Let's dive into something that I think many of us can relate to, though we might not always recognize it as the quiet killer that it is, belittling a woman's achievements. We've all seen it, maybe even done it without thinking. And when it happens, it's like a slow, subtle erosion of her confidence. It's not the big moments of criticism that cut the deepest. It's the little digs, the dismissive comments, the backhanded compliments, the "oh, that's nice, but anyone could have done that" kind of responses. I remember a time when a close friend of mine had just completed a huge project at work. She was so proud of it. She had worked tirelessly, faced so many challenges, and overcame them. It was her moment. She was glowing, her eyes wide with excitement as she talked about how much effort she had put into it. She was looking for validation, maybe a little praise, or just someone to say, "Hey, that's awesome." Instead, the first thing her colleague said was, "Oh, well, it's not like it's that big of a deal. I mean, I could have done it in half the time." And just like that, her face fell. I could see the change, the sparkle in her eyes dimmed, her shoulders slumped. The joy she had carried in talking about her achievement was gone. It was as if, in that one moment, her entire accomplishment was reduced to nothing. Like her hard work and perseverance had just been erased. It's funny, isn't it? How easy it is to dismiss someone's achievements, especially a woman's. And I don't think we even realize the damage we're doing. It's as though society has conditioned us to believe that women's accomplishments are somehow less impressive or less deserving of recognition. How often do you see a woman get praised for something, only to hear someone follow it up with, "Well, she's lucky," or "It wasn't that hard"? How many times do we diminish her wins in a way that feels so casual but cuts so deeply? And it's not just about the external criticism. It's about the internal impact. When a woman's achievements are belittled, it can plant seeds of doubt. She might start second-guessing her abilities, wondering if she was just lucky or if her success was just a fluke. Psychologically, this kind of belittling can erode her self-worth over time. It chips away at her belief in her capabilities. The writer Maya Angelou once said, "We all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all the threads of the tapestry are equal in value no matter their color." In other words, no achievement should be diminished based on who achieved it or how. Every accomplishment is a thread in that tapestry of life, and it deserves to be recognized for what it is: something earned, something worked for. Think about it, if a woman has put in the effort to reach her goals, no matter how big or small, that deserves recognition. It doesn't matter if someone else thinks they could have done it better or faster. It's not about comparison, it's about acknowledging the value of her journey. The work, the sacrifices, the late nights, the missed weekends. All of that matters. So, here's what I want to leave you with. Next time you hear a woman talk about her success, don't belittle it. Celebrate it with her. Let her know that her efforts are seen, valued, and respected. Because when you truly appreciate someone's achievements, you give them the strength to keep pushing forward. You remind them of their worth, and you make it easier for them to believe in their own potential. And isn't that what we all need? A little more belief in ourselves, and a little more belief in each other? You know, one of the most damaging things we can do, without even realizing it, is comparing a woman to others. It seems harmless enough, right? Why can't you be more like her? Or maybe, she's always so put together, you should learn from her. In the moment, it might sound like advice or motivation. But let's be honest, it's a silent jab at her very identity. And if it happens too often, it doesn't just sting, it can shatter the way she sees herself. I remember a time when I was having a conversation with a friend about her career. She had been struggling with feeling like she wasn't moving fast enough, and it was weighing on her. She'd compare her progress to everyone else's. I tried to reassure her, but then, in a weak moment, I made the mistake of mentioning another woman I knew who seemed to be ahead. I said something like, "Well, she's already doing it. Why can't you be more like her?" It wasn't malicious, I just thought it would motivate my friend. But the way her face fell told me everything. She didn't feel inspired, she felt inadequate. The comparison wasn't a push forward, it was a weight pulling her back. It's so easy to do, right? We all have these moments where we look at someone else's success, or their appearance, or their life, and we think it's something we should measure ourselves against. But here's the problem, comparing her to someone else, even if it's well-intentioned, is like telling her that who she is right now, in this moment, isn't enough. It's like you're saying her journey, her accomplishments, Her struggles, they don't matter because they don't measure up to someone else's. And that's a dangerous message. Psychologically, it goes deeper than just a comment or a throwaway line. Research shows that comparison is one of the fastest ways to erode self-esteem. When we constantly compare ourselves to others, it's like we're placing a ruler against our lives and finding them lacking. It's a never-ending cycle of self-doubt and insecurity. But here's the thing, nobody's journey is the same. No one's timeline, path, or challenges are identical. And that's exactly why comparison is so harmful. It fails to recognize the uniqueness of each individual. There's a quote by the late, great author and motivational speaker, Jim Rohn, that really hits home: "Don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better." What I love about that is the shift in focus. It's not about looking sideways at someone else's success or feeling jealous. It's about looking inward and focusing on improving yourself, in your own time, at your own pace. The truth is, when we compare, we forget that we're all on different paths. A woman who's ahead of you might have gone through different struggles, taken different risks, or simply been in a different place in her life. You can't measure your worth based on someone else's journey. And let's be honest, this isn't just something that happens in the workplace or in the context of success. It happens with appearance, too. How often do we see women comparing themselves to models, to actresses, to influencers on social media? And let's not even get started on the unrealistic standards set by filters and photoshopped images. But the truth is, beauty isn't a checklist. It's not something that can be measured or compared. Everyone has their own kind of beauty, and no one's face or body can be the ultimate standard. And yet, when we start comparing one woman to another, we erase the very thing that makes her unique. The real secret to breaking the cycle of comparison? Acceptance. Accepting yourself for who you are, flaws and all. Embracing your journey as yours, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. Because that's the only race you're in, the one with yourself. And if we spent more time supporting each other, celebrating each other's wins without needing to compare, we might all feel a little less pressure and a lot more peace. So next time, instead of pointing out the differences between her and someone else, try this: celebrate her. Honor where she is, where she's been, and where she's going. Because the moment we stop comparing is the moment we start truly supporting each other, and that's when real growth happens. Let's talk about something that seems small on the surface but can do a lot of damage over time: being emotionally unavailable or cold. It's one of those things that doesn't come with loud, obvious warning signs. It's subtle. It's the kind of thing that often goes unnoticed until someone's self-esteem is just a little bit lower, their trust a little bit more fragile, and their spirit a little bit more bruised. I'll be honest. I've been guilty of this. There have been times in my life where I've put up emotional walls, where I've shut myself off from those around me, especially in relationships. Maybe I thought I was protecting myself. Maybe I thought that if I stayed detached, if I didn't let anyone in too deep, I could avoid getting hurt. But what I didn't realize at the time was that being emotionally distant doesn't protect anyone. It just creates a void. And in that space, all kinds of insecurities grow. I remember a relationship from a few years ago where I was emotionally unavailable, even though I didn't want to be. I would keep conversations surface level, avoiding the deeper emotional stuff. Whenever she'd open up, I'd retreat. Sometimes it wasn't even conscious. It was like a reflex. But it didn't take long for her to start pulling away, too. She'd ask me what was wrong, why I seemed so distant. But I just couldn't open up. And with every interaction like that, her confidence in our connection faded. It wasn't long before I could see it in her eyes, this quiet frustration, a feeling that maybe she wasn't worth my emotional investment. It's heartbreaking to realize that now. But in that moment, I didn't understand the damage I was doing. When you're emotionally unavailable, it's like telling someone, I don't need you. And on some level, that's what makes it so destructive. A woman, like anyone, wants to feel seen, heard, and valued. When you're cold, distant, or shut down, you're taking away that validation. It's like you're telling her, your feelings don't matter enough for me to engage with them, or you're not important enough for me to be vulnerable with you. And it goes beyond just not being affectionate or open. It's the way you make her feel when she's trying to share something real. When you act cold, when you shut down emotionally, you're sending the message that her emotions, her heart, aren't worth the risk. Over time, that creates this emotional gap. She starts to question herself, to second-guess her worth. And that's dangerous territory. There's a beautiful quote by Brené Brown that really hits home here: when we numb the good stuff, too. If you're emotionally unavailable, if you shut down the bad feelings to avoid pain, you're also shutting down the good ones, the warmth, the intimacy, the deep connection that makes a relationship meaningful. You can't selectively numb your emotions. You can't just block out the hurt and expect to feel joy and closeness on your terms. It doesn't work like that. What's worse is that being emotionally unavailable doesn't just hurt the other person, it hurts you too. You might think you're avoiding vulnerability, but in reality, you're depriving yourself of the connection, the growth, and the healing that comes from truly letting someone in. When you shut yourself off, you miss out on the depth of human connection. You miss out on love, on true intimacy, and on the powerful feeling of being fully known and accepted for who you really are. And you know, sometimes we do this because we're afraid. We're afraid of rejection, afraid of getting hurt, afraid of losing control. But the irony is that by being cold, by being emotionally unavailable, you actually make it more likely that you'll create distance and cause the very thing you're afraid of, emotional disconnection. So here's the takeaway: emotional availability isn't just about being vulnerable, it's about letting someone know they matter. It's about showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. And when you open up, not only do you strengthen your relationships, but you also begin to heal, to grow, and to experience a deeper sense of fulfillment. Being open to others is, in many ways, a way of being open to yourself. Thanks for watching today's video. Remember, true strength in relationships comes from lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. While understanding ego is important, treating others with respect and compassion is always the way forward. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Keep healing, keep growing, and take care of your heart. See you next time.